Hey, what's going on? As you can see, this is a 3D printer. I've actually had this since they pretty much came out, but due to it being incredibly unreliable, just a terrible design that was actually kind of ripped off from open source. I don't know, that kind of pisses me off that I spent the money on this thing, considering it was like $2,300, I think, from Adafruit. But anyways, enough of the rambling about that. I'll continue on a little more with some examples of how terrible it is. But when it's working, it prints great and it's extremely handy and you can do some really cool shit with it. So anyways, it's a Makerbot Replicator 2. As you can see from the character LCD, this is one of the original models. I think the new ones have a much nicer screen and interface. But anyways, it got to the point where, I mean, they had mailed me and I had personally replaced everything from the stepper motors, the bot step drivers, the main control board, everything. I've calibrated it. I've done firmware updates, tightened the belts, calibrated everything, and it just wouldn't print. And so they sent me a box with shipping in it. Actually, first they wanted me to pay out of pocket, and I said, "Whoa, you sent me a lemon. This thing's barely running. You guys are paying for shipping." And they actually agreed and mailed me a shipping label. I printed off, stuck it in the box, mailed it to them. They fixed it, did a test print to prove that it works, and they mailed it back to me. And then I'd just gotten busy. I had built this new bench in the meantime, and on this bench I don't have room for it. So as you can see, I had to move a bunch of stuff out of the way. I had my pan of ice and a bunch of other stuff over to the right. Which is why that area where I do my soldering is just cluttered with crap right now, because this is just a temporary home. And anyways, so since I haven't actually printed with it since they've mailed it back to me a year and a half ago or whenever it was, I just had a layer of dust on it and I didn't even know if it worked. So I cleaned it off, plugged it in, and leveled the build plate basically, using the UI in the little screen. And then I did one of the test prints that comes on the little SD card that it comes with, which you can see on the right side above the blinking red button. And the test print finished, so I figured I would make a video of it and show you the test print. I'll pop it off the build surface, and then it's supposed to be a nut and a bolt. So if it printed correctly, they should come off the build surface cleanly, they should look nice, and they should screw together. And then I can go into why I think it's a piece of crap and why you should not spend a penny on the Makerbot brand. So yeah, let's scoot closer and take a look. Okay, so here's the finished print. The little screen over here says build finished, build time, 0 hours, 25 minutes. So let's pull this sucker off of there. Oh, that came off really easily. And you usually have a little bit of stringy filament. So I don't know how well this is focusing, but it turned out pretty decent. So you can see the knurling on it actually has really good detail. And the threads look pretty decent. So let's see, I guess this is the moment of truth, see if they screw together. I'm sure it'll be rough the first few times until it gets smoothed out. But hey, it does work, so. There you go, test print worked, so they obviously did fix it. I don't know what they did, but they had it for a while. So the main reason I got this working again is because I wanted to print something that has 2 poles that fit that diameter right there that I can slide down into here, and then I thought I would have a hole on the side of the shaft where I can push like a pin through it, and then at the top that'll come across and bridge, and then I'll have a little slit open where you can put the Velcro through it. To use the Velcro and the magnet that comes with the actual Keysight branded magnetic hanging kit. And so, yeah, can't do that without a 3D printer to print it with, so that's why I got this hooked up and going, and I guess immediately after I make this video, I will probably get going on designing that. And we'll see how that goes. I'm not the best at 3D design. The only 3D designing I've ever done was drafting class, and yes, I'm just old enough that they had CAD class, but they also had manual drafting class, and manual drafting class is what I took, where you still had your drafting desk, your drafting chair, your drafting board, your T-square, your square triangle, and good old pencil. Yup, pencil. So, yeah, did it the old-fashioned way, but it gave me enough insight into 3D design, and then I went through, watched some tutorials on YouTube, and it was enough to get me going, and I made some cool stuff, and I actually printed a couple practical things for some coworkers. One of them, I have a coworker who had a 3D, like a 3D food processor. They had a food processor that had it was like a plastic mount. Well, what would you call it? It's basically connected the blades to the electric motor. And I guess that broke. Like, they put something in there, like ice or something hard, and I guess it shattered it. But it was only in like 2 pieces. So he brought the 2 pieces in and said, hey, do you think that you could print a replacement part for this? And so it was kind of one of those challenge accepted kind of deals where I took it home, got out the old calipers, took measurements, and made something as close as I possibly could to it. And I didn't know what to do for the screws because I'm not super keen on, like I've said in previous videos, I'm not really super keen on like the mechanical side of things as far as like assembling, threading, tapping, dyeing, screws and nuts and bolts, and it's just kind of my weak point. So the code comes easy, circuit design and that sort of thing is not too difficult for me, but final assembly and finished product, that's where I usually fail. But anyways, in that case, I just made the screw holes, I think like 1 millimeter or 2 smaller in diameter than the actual ones on his unit. And that way I just considered it to be kind of like a self-tapping hole, but not so small that it would crack the build apart. I printed it, gave it to him, and he said it fit like a charm perfectly, and he's still using it to this day, and that was like a year ago. So that's pretty awesome that there are some actual practical applications for this. What else did I print? I printed some other stuff too that was somewhat practical, and there's some more stuff I want to print. I want to, for example, print a little thing that I attached to the top of my frame here, where I can hang. I got a really good quality Logitech, like 720p, it might even be 1080p, I don't know. It's a really high quality webcam that I can aim down at my build plate and then hook it up to either my server or my workbench computer down below here, and then stream it. So then if I'm out of the house, I can check on it, and then using another simple Arduino project, I could even potentially give myself the ability to cut the power if the print goes bad. And I will show you why I need this. If you have a Makerbot Replicator 2, at least the original one, I don't know how reliable the new one is, you will need something like that because you're going to waste a shitload of filament and you're going to be pissed. And Makerbot does not care because it's so easy for them to place the blame on the user, saying that you didn't use our brand of filament, even though their filament, from my personal experience, was shitty. Like, it kept breaking on the spool. The light tugging just of it, the extruder pulling it through the tube would break it, and then it would ruin my build. And it got bubbly, and I had so many problems with their filament. Switched to a different brand, and then most of those problems went away that were filament related. But they'll say that you were using filament that they don't recommend, and they'll blame that on you. They'll say that you didn't level the build plate correctly. They'll try to put blame on the user instead of fixing it. And, I will give them credit, as slow as they were and overloaded as they were, because these things are so unreliable. It took them a while, but they did send me whatever I told them I probably needed to swap it out to try to get this thing running again. It was a pain in the ass, though, because I can't tell you how many times it looked like it was fixed, and then 7 hours into an 8-hour print, it would fail, which means, I wasted like a third of a whole spool, and if you've seen what PLA spool costs, it's still not that cheap. So it's just infuriating. Let me show you And keep in mind, this box here, I started to keep this in case they basically said to fuck off. If they would have gotten to that point, I was ready to go to court about this. And there's already been talks of class action lawsuits because so many people have been having trouble with this freaking printer. I didn't start collecting failed prints until like very late on, before the last time I mailed this off to them. So what I have in this box that I'm about to show you is only about 10% of the failed prints. And it's only the black filament color, which will show you. I have a whole thing full of filament. I'll probably show you in the next video that I have. So this is just from one color filament from the last like few rolls. And I use black because black has the highest melting point. So it's kind of the safest to use. And to me, it hides blemishes and it looks nicer than most of the other colors, unless you specifically need a brighter color. But this is just 10% of my failed prints. And check this out. This whole box filled with these failed prints, that's only 10%. 10% of roughly, I'm guessing around 10%, because I had so many every single week. There was just rat's nests of filament hanging out of my trash can, and it was just really disheartening considering I spent $2,300. And you know, I had a 3D printer I built myself out of hardware from a hardware store. It was the Rep Mendel Prusa, the original, not the new i3 one. Me and my buddy built it because he had one, and I was like, cool, I should build one, and then he helped me build it. That thing, built from freaking threaded rods and crap, and assembled with parts from one of those 3D printers that someone else made. It was more reliable than this. And that should tell you something. And they actually ripped a lot of the design off from those models to make this, only they, I think, came short. It's got a better user experience because it's got a little screen and an interface to help you level the build plate and to surf through your little SD card to pick a print. I mean, it's good for that kind of stuff, but as far as reliability, as you can see from my box full of failed prints, terrible. And there's nothing to explain it. The print will be fine for the first 7 hours, and then all of a sudden the print will just lose a few steps in a different axis over time, and then the whole print shifted. And there's just so many weird little things, and that's using their own software too. I tried using third-party software, had better luck, but it still wasn't completely reliable. It's the hardware that's the problem. So I think due to how much these are worth, I could probably still get decent money for this on eBay or Craigslist. And then I'm going to take the money, and it'll probably actually be enough to buy a brand new 3D printer of a different brand. I'm going to do some research, try to figure out what the most reliable brand is, and buy it. And another thing I have on my purchase list that's probably not going to be for a while due to their cost is a laser cutter, not a 3D. A laser cutter. I'd like a mill too, but I think a laser cutter would be more useful for me because, like I said, I suck at the whole mechanical side of things, like assembling stuff into finished projects, and I think having a laser cutter would make that a lot easier. So I think I've rambled enough for just a simple video to say, hey, look, I got my 3D printer back out. But obviously I need to build somewhere to put this guy because this is taking up a lot of precious work area on my workbench. Yeah, sorry for ranting. This thing just pissed me off. You know, you spend $2,300 to get a name brand, one that's not built. Oh, that's where I was going with this earlier. You know, I spent $2,300 to buy a name brand commercial model, you know, commercial model to get the reliability and the customer service. Because, you know, with the ones you build from the hardware store, it's like every time you do a print, you got to go tighten all the nuts and bolts and kind of recalibrate the thing to make sure it's okay before you do your next print. I was hoping to get something that you calibrate it once, and then it's good to print for a month before you might have to check on things. But no, this thing has not been that reliable. Even the first week, I think I got to like my third or fourth print before it started screwing up. And I've replaced about everything on here, so it's just a bad design. If you go in the Google groups for Replicator, I don't know if is it Makerbot or is it Replicator? Whatever, there's a Google groups for it. It's the biggest one. You'll find it pretty easily. And if you read through there, you will see tons of information on how these things are piles of crap and you should buy basically any other brand than this. But somehow, stupid people like me will just throw money at them anyways. If I would have known that, though, if I would have read that, I would not have bought this. But I bought this early on before I heard bad rumors. All I saw was all the media and the press you know, going to their retail store in New York saying, oh, this is the greatest printer, and yeah, it's... So, quick update, well, quick 16-minute update. In the near future, I will be doing a lot more 3D printer when I have time to do it. I need to finish building the rest of my workbench out to the left side of it so I have somewhere to put it. But hopefully I can get something printed for my Agilent meter, because I'd really like to get the magnetic hanging kit to work, because in its current form it's not that great. Oh! Another quick thing. Let me pull it off the tripod. Okay, so you're familiar with this side of my bench if you've seen any of my other videos. This is where I do my soldering and stuff, but as you can see, to put this on here, this comes right to the edge, and the spool of filament on the back is literally like, I would say like 5 millimeters from my whiteboard. I mean, this is as far right and back as I can get the thing, and that leaves me with no room. So I have the tubing and the base station for my rework station, a little solder tip cleaner thing, the base station for my solder gun, and then the base units for the rework and the soldering station. And as you can see, where I do my soldering is pretty full of crap. So I kind of was looking around while I had this up here and thought, what could I do to make this area cleaner? Because it is still, even when this isn't here, I mean, look, the base unit for the rework station actually takes up almost half of my work area, especially with this thing. That's why I always had that off to the right where I had my big pan of ice. So the idea I came up with was, why don't I build a shelf up there? Like, there's where my instruments are. Build a shelf up there, and then have the rework station on the bottom, and then a little shelf above it where I put the base station for the soldering iron. And the good thing is there's actually a long wire that goes between the base station and the cradle for the actual iron. And then same with this. If I put this way up there, this tube can come all the way down. Look how long it is. So I should be able to get those off the surface of my bench to free up more space down here, because then all I would have is this base unit, the little tip cleaning thing, and this, which I can put sideways. So with all that, I would actually free up a ton of space. So that might be a project in the very near future. So stay tuned. I guess that's it for right now. I will see you in the next video.